Hi, this is Rodrigo from Frame Freak Studio, and this is the Creative Hustler Show. Today's guest is Arree Chung. He's an amazing artist, a book author. He worked at Pixar, and now he's the founder of Storyteller Academy, where he's teaching other artists all the knowledge that it takes about publishing books. So, welcome, Arree.
Thanks. Thanks for having me, Francisco.
So, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your history? How did you get started into art? Where did this come from?
Sure. So I've always doodled and drawn my whole life. I love making art, making stories. I love caricaturing. And, in middle school and high school, I loved watching animation. I still love watching animation. I just, I always dreamed of maybe making my own stories or making movies. But growing up as Asian American, my parents didn't think that was so practical. So I went down a very typical route of going to college, and I graduated with an economics degree. And I worked in business actually for a little while. But everything changed when I met a few art students on the BART train. I was actually commuting home, and they had their art bags, and I just kind of asked them about their art, and I asked them if I could see their drawings, and they showed me their drawings, and I was so blown away that they were so good. And those guys were so nice. They actually ended up inviting me to a workshop where they would go draw. And so at that workshop, I actually showed up to the workshop. I used to work as a business consultant at the time, and then I showed up in my business suit at this at this workshop, and everyone was like, "Who's the guy in the suit back in there?" But even though I stuck out like a sore thumb, I started drawing from the model. I totally sucked. I didn't know what I was doing, but those guys were there. They were so nice. They came up to me and gave me pointers, and I just got hooked on art. I just got hooked on drawing and getting better and learning about how to make that craft. So that's kind of how it all started for me. And basically, I knew then that I need to get out of my consulting job into finding my way to being an artist. And that led me to a job at Pixar, where I worked as a production scheduler. And I worked there for 3 years, and I learned so much just by being around the studio and seeing what artists do and seeing how a movie was made. My job actually was not creative at all. I was basically handling schedules and doing reports and just keeping track of things and helping to problem solve production problems along the way. But it really showed me what it takes in terms of a production process to creating a movie. And then after 3 years of working at Pixar, I knew it was time for me to go and make the jump. And so I quit Pixar and I went to Art Center. And so I basically stayed at Art Center for 4 years before graduating.
Pretty much how much time and effort did it took you to learn art starting from zero, now that you're going to the Art Center, in order to get good at your craft?
Yeah, so great question. While I was working at Pixar, I would take classes on the weekend. So I did that for about 3 years. And, going back to that story of starting to go to workshops, I started taking classes that first year, and then I worked at Pixar for 3 years. So for 4 years, I was just taking classes on weekends, and it was just a side thing. And I was getting better, but I was getting better very slowly. And that's when I knew that I just had an honest moment to myself that I needed to quit my job and actually go to art school and to really get a lot better faster. And so I went to Art Center for 4 years, and I just grew so much every year. And I was doing art all the time. We work pretty hard at Art Center, so you can make some pretty big improvements. But I would say that overall it took me about 5 years, I would say, because the 4 years that I went part-time was very slow, because I was still working a full-time job. I was only going on the weekends. I would do homework, but my growth was very slow. I wasn't doing it all the time. And once you start doing art all the time, you get exponentially better.
Definitely, I think that is totally true. Uh, Also, there is something that I want to ask you because you come from this background from business.
Yeah.
And in business, there is this culture of work ethic, of putting a lot of work, of hustling, like most people say, putting up the hustle, going up to all the opportunities. However, art, normally, not always, but normally, there is a lot of people who are like kind of laid back, who are like waiting for inspiration to come for them. And what I found through all through these years and through meeting a lot of people and interviewing like a really great artist is that a great power comes when this mentality of business of hustle is mixed with this creativity and art. And when you put the hustle into art, like that's when things really take off. Did you experiment something similar?
Well, yeah, I think that in anything to be successful, you need to hustle, you need to work hard. At Art Center, I went to so many workshops, and all my friends were at the same workshop. So on Friday nights, we weren't out partying. We were painting and drawing from a model. On Saturday afternoons, we were doing the same thing. On Sunday, we were landscape painting together. So those were the people that I knew for sure were going to make it in terms of being an artist and being employable and just having really good skills. And that was, you know, a hard kind of hustle in learning the craft and getting a lot better at the craft. But I think what you're kind of talking about is sort of the next level of that, is finding opportunities for yourself and not just waiting for things to happen to you, which is, I think, the business side of hustling. And I think it's completely true. Where the magic happens is when you take hustle of making things happen on your own and being accountable to yourself for those things, and then applying the design skills and the art skills that you have. So that way you can make products, you can get your ideas in the world, you can grow, you know, social media following, whatever it is that you want to do, extending that beyond just art. I think that a lot of artists sometimes, you know, some of us, we like creating in our own little world because that's where we make magic happen. But you know, to share your work and get it out there is another step, and then to make that into a service or a product that you can make a living off of is another step after that.
And how do you think, now that you mentioned this about social media, how do you think it affects the internet and all these opportunities that we have right now? Like, at least from my side, if it wasn't because thanks to the internet, I've been able to do a lot of things with this business. But if it wasn't for that, like, I think I would be in a completely different position right now. However, I had the luck of going through London and many of these great countries, Sweden, the US, and I was able to see there that the opportunities that exist online in these countries are way much better. So, do you think most artists are not taking advantage of the opportunities that are right now available to them? And if so, how do you think it will affect art as an industry to take more advantage?
Yeah, I think, well, great question. I think that the internet has definitely changed everything. I mean, you look at the most powerful companies in the world, you know, it's Google, it's Amazon, it's the technology has infiltrated our lives in every single facet, you know, Apple with iPhone. And I think that the internet has allowed us to share our work and to be real people now. So the internet is not the internet that existed 10 years ago where people are anonymous anymore, right? Like, we can connect to each other, we can video chat for each other basically for free. And for an artist, it's the most amazing tool to be able to build your personal brand and getting your work out there. But I think the challenge is, and I have this challenge myself, is that we're just so busy. So now you're not just creating artwork, you have to think about getting your artwork out there. And it's also not as simple as I need to create artwork and get it out there. You also have to have sort of a plan and strategy on who you are as a person and what kind of artwork you want to make out in the world, and that personal brand represents you. But I think that brand is really powerful because brands are basically built off of what people want to achieve or what they want to do. So your personal brand can be the leverage point for products or for services. You know, you think of like a company like Nike, for example, right? Nike sponsors athletes to attach themselves to a personal story, to a personal brand. And for artists, as an artist, you are your own personal brand. Your love of making art and making that specific kind of art is your brand. That is you. The trick is then from there is how can you turn that into a service where you serve people or a product that people want to buy. And I think that's the extra steps to learn as an artist on how to become an entrepreneur with the online opportunities that exist. I think the challenge is, of course, is there's a lot of things to do, you know, especially with marketing and getting yourself out there.
That is definitely true. Something that you just mentioned, and I've seen this happen with a lot of my friends. I know of a lot of people who are like writing books, and they started pretty much from a blog, gaining followers, building an email list and things like that, and start self-publishing little by little. And then they got like huge publishing deals because they came like, hey, this is my book, and this is a list of 150,000 people who want to buy it. So I have done a lot of work for you already. And I found a lot of people that started changing the publishing industry because now the publishing industry is trying to get like writers who already have a following, who already have like a big club of fans who wants to buy their work. And now even Amazon, like Tim Ferriss, help them out to create this process where you put your book there digitally and they can print it out as the orders come out. So now you have to book also the work. So your fans will buy the books on Amazon, because if not, there is not this deal where it's going to be like 50,000 copies made and trying to be sold into all stores. So yeah, I definitely think this has changed a lot of things. And in your experience, have you used this at your favor when doing your own books?
No, so picture books are actually kind of a different model and beast to self-publishing with Amazon. So I think like self-publishing opportunities are really exciting and great for a lot of different genres, especially things like sci-fi and romance and YA. And I think Kindle makes a ton of sense because it's a digital product. But picture books are still actually bound, and they're 32 pages. And so the cost that goes into these books are pretty high. And it's such a niche market that I don't actually recommend self-publishing a picture book because just the economics aren't there. Picture books sell for between I'd say $12 to $17, and just creating a picture book in the United States is going to be probably on the low side $4 or $5, maybe as much as $6, $7, and they're going to require you to buy thousands of copies. And so then you are automatically turning yourself into an entrepreneur without necessarily knowing that that's what you want to get into. So I think a lot of people kind of do that, and I think the hard part about self-publishing a picture book is also you have to have a great story. So that's just a lot of risk and a lot of things to do. So I actually don't recommend self-publishing for picture books in particular. I think it can be a viable option for other mediums, and I think it is actually good. Like, let's say for example, and actually let me go back a step. You sort of mentioned about having 150,000 followers. And, you know, if you have that many followers, that's awesome because you've built a great community and built trust to those people, and those people definitely will support you and buy. And that's why, you know, a publisher will offer you a contract because you bring to them so many customers and so many you basically lower the business risk for it. So, you know, if I had 150,000 followers, which I don't, you know, maybe I would. I probably still wouldn't because I still don't want to deal with all the production parts of it. I still also want to get my books into libraries and bookstores. So I still would probably go the traditional route because you know, a company like Macmillan, who's my home publisher, they have, you know, it's their whole business to do that. And I think that, you know, people like Tim Ferriss, he started with traditional publishing. 4-Hour Workweek was huge, and it was a big, you know, obviously New York Times bestseller, got him on the map. And then he went to self-publishing for a little bit. I think he did the 4-Hour Body or Chef.
The Chef.
Yeah, so he did that on his own and did not sell as much. And he tried to hustle and do all these things with his community. He has a big community, but it did not sell as much. And I think that there is a lot of positive value that a traditional publisher still brings to you. And if you can have both, like if you can have the support of a big publisher and have your own following, then that's the perfect recipe because, you know, they get you into libraries, and you also get they have a marketing team that is putting your stuff out there. You'll get more opportunities from there. And then if you can leverage your community to help you, you know, have a big launch and get on the New York Times bestseller, that's the way to go. You know, I think that's ideally the way to go. Getting a book deal is hard though, and it takes time and it takes work. But what I would say to that is if you build a community and you become a good writer, if you become a good artist and know how to make a good craft, it's just a matter of time before all these things come together. And I think you would ideally do both.
Yeah, definitely. I think the same. Like, if you can have the best of worlds, why you not use them?
Yeah, definitely.
And can you tell us a little bit about your experience of creating your books, Go, Ninja Claus, and the new book that you're getting out that is called Mix?
Yeah, sure. So I work with Macmillan. They're my home publisher, and my first book was a book called Ninja, and now it's a 3-book series. This is the most recent one. It's called Ninja Claus, and it comes out for Christmas, and so just in time for Christmas. And then I also had a book called Out that just came out this past year. It's about a baby and a dog. The baby gets out of his crib, and the dog is trying to keep him safe. And it's a super funny, really minimal book. And then my newest book, which will come out next year, is called Mix. And it basically uses color theory to describe diversity. So the colors argue about which color is the best. And they end up fighting over which color is the best until one day. So this is red. This is yellow. And this is blue. And they live in a city sort of like San Francisco. And then one day, a red says, "Reds are the best." And so then they end up disagreeing. Yellows say, "No, that we're their best because we're the brightest," and the blues were too cool to even respond. So then they end up living in different parts of the city. Until one day, a yellow meets a blue. So I won't give the rest of the story away. You'll have to wait till next year. But yeah, I make my books with Macmillan, and it's been great. I love this organization called SCBWI, Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, and that's really where I learned how to make picture books. And And I went to many conferences, and that's where I was able to meet agents and editors and show my work. And just through the process of making dummies, you slowly and surely get better, and eventually you get your first big break, which for me was Ninja.
Nice. And what are the differences between publishing this type of books than regular books of histories and sci-fi and all this?
Oh, so yeah, picture books are for a very specific age group. It's 4 to 8-year-olds, kids that are reading with their parents, usually before bedtime. So it's for a very, very specific age. The words are spare. There's not that many words. Usually stories are less than 500 words, and the stories rely heavily on the pictures to help tell the story. The other kinds of stories are just longer form narrative and for older audiences.
Nice. Also, I guess there is like certain kind of difficulty between like explaining everything into letters into one page, than trying to make all that page be told, like all that history be told in a single illustration. How do you go about that process?
About how to tell the story over multiple images?
Or better yet, like how can you tell a huge story into just one illustration? Because I guess sometimes that is the something that you need to do in a book. Like you need to do an illustration that has a lot of meaning to the people who are reading it, right?
Yeah, well, a story is built up, with a setup and inciting incidents, sort of the theme. So there's a lot of planning that goes into making a story and plotting a story, and then you think about the design and the illustrations on how you can tell that story based on what's happening in the text and in the page turns. And so the most important actually part of a picture book and books in general is the page turn, is sort of the reveal of what happens next. But I would say that in terms of coming up with an image, it's thinking about how you can visually tell that story, and all the elements that would go into it. So that goes down to the details of what colors you use, character design, background design, just taking all those visual elements that that you can use as tools to tell the story. I hope that makes sense.
Definitely. Also, when I first found about you, it was because Benson Shum posted about the Storyteller Academy, and I went into the site and I thought it was completely amazing. Even one of my partners in this business wants to take this course. Right now we are kind of busy,
Yeah.
But can you tell us more about the Storyteller Academy?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so Storyteller Academy is something that I put a lot of time into. I love is becoming a picture book author and illustrator has been such a long and hard journey. And when we start, we're just lost. You don't know what to do. And I learned a lot through going to SCBWI conferences. I learned by just making lots of mistakes, and I tried really hard for years. There was a couple of years even before that I dreamed about making stories, and I just didn't get very far because I wasn't actively working on them. And then when I started working on my own dummies, I was making all these beginner mistakes. And so when I finally got published, I thought about the journey that I've been on and all the things I've learned. And I wish there was a place where I could have learned these things in a more efficient way. And I wish I had an online community where I could make stories with and learn and have this community that basically what SCBWI is at the conferences, but that doesn't really exist online that much. And so I decided to start my own school where I would basically just share exactly how I make stories and how I work. And we focus on doing the work and making dummies because that's where stories really come together in making the dummy and revising the dummy. And yeah, I share my experiences, and we focus on doing the work, and people make dummies and they get better, and it's really fun to see their stories grow from ideas into real books. And our students get results. They end up winning sometimes awards to go to SCBWI conferences, or Abby won the New England Pen Award. People end up getting agents, and our first student actually just sold a book deal. So she, she got that done. And it's a long process. I don't want anybody to think that you take a 12-week class and then you make a book, you get published right away. It doesn't work that way. But if you stick to the process of making the work and revising it and getting better, you will hit your dream. You'll make it happen eventually. You just got to keep at it. But I founded Storyteller Academy for that sole purpose, is to help people take their ideas and make them into stories and get them published.
Great. And I'm not sure if this is so much different, but when you're producing a book, do you have an editor that helps you out in the process of creating the book?
Yes, yeah, for sure. So having an editor is actually one of the biggest reasons why you want to go with a large publisher, is that an editor will help you improve your story, and will help you not only edit your story, but will help you as a creative partner to push you to make the story better. And then she's also, or he, is also the person that is your voice in-house, that helps you, connect you to marketing, and helps you grow your career. So yeah, you definitely have an editor inside, and having the right editor that fits your personality is such an important piece of your creative career. My editor, her name is Kate Farrell, and she's amazing. Like, I feel like we're such good friends, and I'm so blessed and lucky to have her.
And what would be your tips in order, if you didn't have the opportunity to get a publisher, and you want to advance your idea, and you want to hire an editor in order to help you out with a book idea, what would be your tips to get a really good editor?
Yeah, so if you're going to freelance an editor, there are definitely lots of editors that used to work at publishing houses that offer freelance services. So I would do one of two things. I mean, there are, I think there's a list that SCBWI has of people who give freelance editing services, and I would look for somebody who used to work at, at Penguin or Simon Schuster or Macmillan, at one of the larger publishing houses, and then ask them if they'd be willing to read your story and to give you feedback. But before that part of it, I think a lot of people, who are just starting out, I would recommend taking a class, taking a class like Storyteller Academy, or, an online class somewhere else, or a community college class, because I think a lot of people just don't know how to structure a story or what makes a good story. And so before you even pay for an editor to look at your story, is to make sure that you know the foundations of story, how to put together a story and work on that story, and actually have a critique group that you work with consistently to improve your story. That's really where the hard work is. And then once you have something polished, then take your money and help you and get it edited, seek out professional advice on how to make it better, and then just improve on it. And then that's what I would do.
Nice. When people are starting out becoming an artist and wanted to start their own books, what are the most common mistakes that you see people making that they are not aware that they are making?
Yeah, great question. I would say a few of the biggest mistakes, and I've probably made every single mistake in the book, is I'd say the very first one is that the story is not relatable to kids. they don't know their audience. So a lot of us start off making picture books because we have all these ideas that come to our head, but we're adults. You know, what appeals to an adult doesn't necessarily appeal to a kid. And if you're making a picture book, you're making a book for a 5-year-old. So oftentimes I'll see stories that just aren't relatable to kids. They have too many adult themes in them. So I would say that's a big mistake. I would say another big mistake is that there are too many themes or too many stories in one story idea, in one story. So it's basically cluttered with a lot of different concepts, and it's not narrowed down to one simple idea. Another mistake is having too many characters, and not having one single character or two characters that play off each other. And then I would say the last mistake that I would see common is that people don't develop their work far enough. And for me, I think making a dummy is such an important part of the process in developing your work, so that way it has depth to it, and that you're thinking about page turns, and you're thinking about how you're setting up the story and how you end the story and how you escalate the story. So those are just some of I'd say, the beginner mistakes that I see.
Nice. Also, this is a kind of tricky question that I'm about to do, but what is something that you didn't expect at all in your career when you started that became true and is really important?
Well, if I think about from beginning to end to where I am now, from the first time I met those art students, and I was just dreaming about becoming an artist, I would have never thought I would be here today as a picture book author and illustrator, and it's something that I'm so blessed and lucky to have as work to do. But I think it's what I've been surprised about is where your creativity will lead you in your creative journey, and to be open to new possibilities on what can happen, in terms of where your interest lies, and I've been able to take what I love with making picture books and turn it into a service that helps people in helping them make stories. And I would have never thought that would be a business that I would start myself. So I think that just being open to what life brings you and where your creativity takes you would be the surprise, and sort of the takeaway to it is to really love what you do and you'll know whether you love it or not by if you spend a lot of hours doing it, if you like going to workshops all the time, if you like building 10 dummies on the same story, if you are addicted to that and love getting better at it, then you're on the right path. If you don't like it, then don't do it. Find something else that you like to do.
Nice, definitely. I think this is a kind of a big tricky topic, because many people say oh, I don't know what to do, or they are trying to find what they love, but they are trying to do so by sitting down and thinking a lot. I think it works much better just to test a lot of things and actually do a lot of things, and it's definitely worth it to spend 2 to 3 years doing a lot of things to try to find out what is the thing that works best for you. Do you find that to be true as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really smart to try out new things, especially if you're right out of school, or if you're in transition. And by the way, it's never too late to try out new things. You're never too old to try new things. But I think I think that instead of trying to figure things out in your head or on paper, is just get started, and to get started, to learn by doing, and then not to work alone, to find a mentor, to find a community that is doing what you want to do. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can learn from other people, and and it's more fun to learn from other people and to work with them in pursuing that goal. So, but definitely just dive in, get started, talk to other people who are doing what you want to do, and do it.
Something that I found that I just remember from something that you just mentioned, I've joined groups of entrepreneurships that are really similar to what you're doing with Storyteller Academy. Obviously, in these groups, like there is a specific goal to be achieved, either be marketing or automation or anything else. However, I think that for most people, they understand what you just say. Like, for example, that if somebody joins the academy, they are not going to have a book published in 2 or 3 weeks. And I think in the same in entrepreneurship groups, there are a lot of people who understand that they are not going to become like a millionaire in 3 months. However, there is always somebody who joins and thinks that he's actually going to become like a millionaire in 3 months, and then he's like all angry because he's not a millionaire yet. I'm guessing that you have gotten this kind of somebody who has joined the academy and thinks that he will have like a book published in 1-2 months. Has this happened to you? And if so, how do you deal with this?
Yeah, so I think it's all about setting expectations and informing and educating. So, you know, it's actually a part of our responsibility as a community and also as a teacher to let them know what the realistic expectations are. And, you know, if it's not the right fit for them, then they can quit and they can leave. And, you know, we have a money back guarantee, so that way if it's not the right fit for you, then you get your money back. Like, I don't want your money if you're unhappy and you have expectations of getting published quickly, because it just doesn't work that way. And I think it's the way we deal with it is we basically just give them the roadmap of this is how most people get published, is they build a great story, they build connections with people in the publishing industry, and then and they build a critique group, and they work on the stories, and then they're able to sell them. And this is sort of how long it takes. So, you know, we learn so much by learning through other people's stories. And so, you know, in these entrepreneurship groups that you mentioned, you know, someone who wants to be a millionaire in 3 months, well, that person is probably going to be able to see that that's unrealistic expectations once they meet all these other people who have been doing it for 2 or 3 years, and then they lay out, oh, this is where the milestone for me, these were the things I did to be able to reach that goal. And then that is basically your roadmap on what you need to do to reach that goal. I think that most things in life are achievable, but it takes a lot of work, right? And having that roadmap is really helpful, because then you know what you need to aim for.
This is another hard question that I like to ask, because sometimes it gets me really interesting answers. Let's say that you wake up tomorrow and you are in a different dimension. Nobody knows about you. Pretty much you have to start from ground zero, but you have all your experience, all your skills. You have the tools that you need to do art, and you have $500 in your pocket. What do you do to get at this point professionally as soon as possible?
Oh, great. Neat question. I think the first thing I would do is to work on a story and work on something that can be a book, to be a picture book. And then I would go to SCBWI, and I would try to meet other storytellers and bookmakers, and I would meet editors and agents. And I would just focus on getting my work out there and improving my work, and I would stick to that until it happened. I would take online classes, and as well as classes in real life. I would just do anything I could to get better at the craft. So I put in a lot of work. That's number one. And then the second thing I would do is I would just make real friendships and relationships to people doing what I want to do. It's pretty simple. And then I would just focus on those two things. You know, social media is a great way of connecting with people these days as well. But you need to go beyond social media. You also need to, I think, meet people in real life and be in those communities and participate. So I would, yeah, I would basically make real connections, real life friendships, and work on doing the work. And then once you do the work, then you can share all your work that you're doing on social media and other places.
Nice. Is there any advice that you would like to give the people who are starting out in their careers that we haven't talked about into this interview?
Sure. I would just say, you know, like, I think we live in an amazing time with technology as well as the internet that connects us, and just about anything is possible. And you know, now that the internet is no longer anonymous, you can connect to other people that are doing similar things or doing the things you want to do. You can learn from them. I myself invest in many other online classes, and you know, I've been building Storyteller Academy as an online business, and I've learned these things through other mentors online. And so then just knowing what you want to do and going for it, and asking yourself how you could provide value, how you can help somebody else, I think is a really good question to ask yourself that clarifies a mission to where you can help other people and you can create more opportunities for yourself. I think it's an amazing time.
Thanks a lot. And if people want to find you online, where will be the best place to do so?
Yeah, so you can go to storytelleracademy.com if you're interested in making picture books or learning how to make picture books. You can see my picture books at arree.com, it's spelled ARREE.com. And then I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, just at Arree Chung.
Nice. Thanks a lot for giving us a little bit of your time and also your advice and your knowledge. It is truly appreciated.
Cool. Thanks.
Also, you can expect a couple of members of our team to join the Storyteller Academy soon enough.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, we've been starting to grow a small international audience, which has been really neat because it opens my eyes that, wow, there's, the world is a pretty big place, and you can connect to so many different people all over the world through the internet. It's amazing.
Definitely. And one of the things that I like about this is that, for example, if we try to find institutions here to give this kind of education, they ask for a lot of money, and the quality of the content is not that great. And I think it doesn't make any sense at all to be paying like $100 a month or more. In some cases, some of these institutions are charging like $200 a month with teachers who have absolutely no experience in what they are doing.
Yeah.
And giving you like material that doesn't have anything to do with reality, and options like yours, like Storyteller Academy, is like so much better because you are getting somebody who has experience, who has done it in the past, goes directly to the point. Like there is no fillers, signatures, or things that you have to do to lose time. Like you go directly attacking the goal that you want to do. Mm-hmm. You spend much less time, you spend much less money, and I think it's really amazing what you have started here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we're just getting started too. Like there's going to be more classes, and it makes me feel so great to help people achieve their dreams. Like people dream about making a picture book and dream about making this a career. So I think we provide value by helping them do that, and that makes me like really proud to help people, and to also on the other side of things is for me to like grow my own learning and my own skills as a business person, as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of things to learn. So, I get humbled every day on all the things I don't know and what I'm learning.
Definitely. I think also there is a bit of magic that happens when you have to teach other people what you know, that connects much better inside your head, all the lessons that you give,
yes.
right?
Yes. When you teach, I learn as much from my students as they're learning from me. And also, when you go through the process of documenting and explaining things, you have to organize those ideas and be able to express them clearly. And you get better at the craft by doing that.
Definitely. Thanks a lot again for being here and sharing all this experience with us.
Yeah, it's been great. Great getting to talk to you and keep in touch for sure.
Definitely. So this has been the last episode of the Creative Hostler Show. If you like it, please click the like button below and also share this interview with your friends. Until next time.